Flashes of Insight. Let's talk about liturgy in COVID-19. My name is Joe Grayland, and I'm talking with Tom O'Loughlin, Professor Emeritus of Historical Theology at the University of Nottingham in England. Tom's an internationally acclaimed scholar, writer, and teacher. Tom, welcome back to Flashes of Insight.
Joe, it's lovely to be back.
Today, our conversation focuses on liturgy as more than ritual. I'm just wondering whether this experience of COVID has been also fascinating for you. What have you experienced and what have you seen that you would call COVID liturgy, or even where the liturgy has been adapted because of COVID needs?
Well, I've been intrigued at the two ends of liturgy. I've been intrigued at the formal end, where people have tried to take terribly formal liturgy and just put it on as a television performance. And that is one reaction. It's liturgy as an object there. But I've been even more impressed by the number of people who said they have invented liturgy. They've actually discovered for the first time often that they have a need to reflect, not only to reflect, but to express, and to express within the community, which might be just a few people in a house, it might be people on Zoom, a need then to express that reflection and belief. So we've seen, in a way, how little we've understood what Vatican II wanted to do with liturgy, in that we went back to Father doing his thing and we watching it, and that was apparently enough. But we've also seen people who have, I can't tell you how many emails people have sent me saying, we developed our own liturgy.
Do you think that we're achieving a new pattern of worship? Or is this just a hiatus and we'll go back to what's comfortable?
Well, first of all, if you have a better crystal ball than I have, you should answer that one. Who knows? But Judith Courtney sent me an email earlier today. She says, do you think we're rediscovering the domestic church? And I think many people are rediscovering the domestic church, the sense that church takes place in their own domus, their own home, but also that church is a small community of people that one is actually in real communion with. It's not just the group down there where you go either to give a service or to have a service. So I think we're at a very interesting time. If we go back, I think we've glimpsed the empty churches, and I think we could easily, what COVID has done is it's compressed the experience of maybe 30 years into 3 or 4 months. And I think it's shown a certain unfit for purpose with what we have been doing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we're seeing something else growing, and the question is, which option? Will we try to resume, or will we really try to renew?
Yeah, I think that's an important question. For instance, here we had lots of families praying at home, where the parents were presiding at worship for their children. So in the initial weeks of coming back out of our level 4 into level 3 and level 2, we encouraged them to come to church and actually do the liturgy that they were doing at home, but this time do it in the church. And there was a priest who presided, but basically didn't do much until it came to the Eucharistic prayer. What we've experienced also in New Zealand, I think, which is maybe a little bit different to other countries, is that we had hard lockdown. We came out of it into a sense of safety, and now we've gone back down into a form of lockdown. And so the experience that I think is beginning to build among us is, what is the opportunity that is ahead of us that we need to grasp? So do you think, if it is ahead of us, what are some of the things we need to do in order to grasp that opportunity?
I think we have to rediscover the sense of praying in our own homes. I think that's, unless we do that, we're going nowhere. I think we also have to discover the sense of thankfulness as a meal experience, so that we do it every, that, I'm not thinking of just going back to formal grace before meals as a little throwaway thing, but that we actually engage in our own homes in thankfulness. And I think then once we come to our parishes, that we think of our parishes as being built up of these smaller communities who are coming together to worship, rather than being service centres which are organised from the diocese down. And that will require everything from a new mindset on who we are as church, to quite literally changing the physical shape in which we worship to try and reflect that new ecclesial reality.
Yes.
So I think big changes will come from this.
Yeah, I think there are some big changes, and I'd like to move on the conversation a little bit back to what we did last week around enculturation. We spoke about it. We've spoken about disruption and growth in this experience, and enculturation is also an experience of disruption and growth. So, how realistic do you think it is for us now to move towards local liturgical expressions? Do you think it's time to recognize that the universal concept of a single liturgy for the whole Roman Church is over?
We use the phrase universal concept. Well, the universal concept is fundamentally what Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is about, and that is that we worship God. If we change from that, then we stop being who we are. So that's absolutely universal. But the forms will have to evolve, because the forms must be true both to the need to worship God, but true to the differences that we recognize between us as peoples.
Just wonder here, if we pick this enculturation and local thing apart, and the fact that we're all responding individually. For instance, one of the things that I found fascinating is that the Roman guidance from the congregation, if you like, from the Vatican, has been into the minutiae of things rather than into guidance and wisdom about how we deal with COVID in various cultural contexts, how we understand online, offline. And I'm just wondering have we reached the stage, do you think, where the leadership that the Vatican can give us is actually no longer fit for purpose?
Well, it's not so much that it's not fit for purpose. If the whole world operates neatly according to the vision that is contained in the Code of Canon Law, and I realize I just have a copy right here beside me on the desk, then life is simple. But if the world is not operating in such a hunky-dory way, then you can say what you want to happen as much as you like. Their real worship has followed the real contours of where they were. People think there was this one great, perfect Roman rite. That was never the case. That was one of the great illusions. People in Ireland spent all their time saying the Rosary. People in parts of Germany spent their time singing hymns. People always actually created a real liturgy for themselves that responded to their needs. And often what you then had was an official liturgy operating at one level and a real liturgy, often with very little control, operating underneath it. And what I think we have to try and achieve is a greater harmony between the great Christian insights, the fundamental things that make us who we are as Christians, and then the way we express it, whether it takes one form in Fiji, one form in New Zealand, or one form in Wales. They will always be different forms. And this hunky-dory world of everything being neat, very much an illusion.
Do we need to reconsider the role of local worship and its rituals in our worship? at a fundamental level? Do we need to start going back and looking at our language, our translation, our symbolism, our rituals? How deep do we need to go?
We have to go all the way back to John chapter 4. Not on this mountain or in Jerusalem, but in spirit and in truth. If the temple experience of Judaism has been that the Lord pitched his tent among his people, that is the great memory of the Exodus. But for us as Christians, the Lord has pitched his tent among us in flesh. And the Word became flesh and became a tent among us. So we acknowledge the Christ as the presence of God in our humanity. And that means it will have to follow the contours, not just of this mountain or that mountain, but wherever people worship in spirit and in truth. And that's the fundamental idea, that the unity of the liturgy is the unity in Christ, not in having the same verbal formulae. And the reality of the unity of the liturgy is having the same end, the praise of the Father, whether it's from Fiji or from somewhere in Wales. The unity is not in the form. The unity is not some sort of ideological formula or in some that we all use one set of books. The unity is that we're united in Christ, we're united in the Father through Christ, and in between we have a variety of things which reflect the variety that makes you Joe and me Tom.
So we end up with an incarnational liturgy. Do you think we're actually prepared to do that? Or are we perhaps more prepared to do it because we're people of the 21st century?
We like ideas, and so we have a natural disposition to be Gnostics. We like the idea of ideological unity. We like the idea of everyone having exactly the same hymn sheet. No, it's the hymns all have to end in the right place, and they have to start from the human heart. But the words of the hymns can be in any shape or form. But we have a lot of baggage, which means that incarnational liturgy is very frightening to us because it looks chaotic.
Tom, I'd like to thank you for that. And you have been listening to Flashes of Insight. Let's talk about liturgy during COVID-19. My name's Joe Grayland. I've been talking with Tom O'Loughlin, Professor Emeritus of Historical Theology at the University of Nottingham in England. Tom, thank you for sharing with us.
Okay, thanks, Joe.